The 21st century has been marked by a shifting global landscape. The end of the Cold War left the United States as the sole superpower. However, the rise of new powers, particularly China, has challenged this unipolarity. China's economic expansion and military modernization have prompted talk of a new era of great power competition. This competition spans economic, technological, diplomatic, and military fronts. The United States and China are vying for influence in key regions. They compete to set international rules, especially in trade and technology. This new era has led to a reassessment of alliances and partnerships. The United States seeks to strengthen alliances to counter China's influence. The world is more interconnected than during the Cold War. Economic interdependence and global challenges require cooperation, even between rivals. The parallels between the current era and the Cold War are undeniable. There is a clear ideological divide between the United States and China, with the former championing democracy and a rules-based international order, and the latter promoting a more authoritarian model of governance. Both countries are engaged in a military build-up, albeit in different ways. The United States maintains a global military presence, while China is rapidly modernizing its armed forces and expanding its influence in the Indo-Pacific region. The United States is strengthening its alliances in Europe and Asia, while China is promoting its Belt and Road Initiative, a massive infrastructure project aimed at connecting Asia, Europe, and Africa. Unlike the Soviet Union, China is deeply integrated into the global economy. It is the world's second-largest economy and a major trading partner of the United States. This economic interdependence makes the current rivalry different from the Cold War. In this context of great power competition, India's role has become increasingly important. As the world's largest democracy and a rising economic power, India holds a unique position. Its strategic location in the Indo-Pacific region makes it a key player in the region's geopolitical dynamics. The United States sees India as a potential counterweight to China's influence in the region. India, on the other hand, has historically maintained a policy of non-alignment and strategic autonomy. India's relationship with China is complex and multifaceted. The two countries share a long and disputed border, and their relationship has been marked by both cooperation and competition. This complex geopolitical triangle, the United States, China, and India, is shaping the future of the international order. The relationship between the United States and India has been characterized by periods of both convergence and divergence, often shaped by the geopolitical realities of the time. During the Cold War, India's policy of non-alignment, while rooted in its desire for strategic autonomy, was often perceived by the United States as tilting towards the Soviet Union. India's close ties with the Soviet Union, particularly in the areas of defense and economic cooperation, raised concerns in Washington. The United States, on the other hand, forged a close alliance with Pakistan, India's regional rival, further complicating the relationship. The 1971 war between India and Pakistan, which led to the creation of Bangladesh, saw the United States siding with Pakistan, further straining relations with India. India's nuclear tests in 1974, conducted in response to perceived threats from both China and Pakistan, were met with sanctions from the United States. The end of the Cold War did not immediately lead to a dramatic improvement in relations. The 1990s witnessed a gradual shift in the relationship, driven by several factors. India's economic liberalization, initiated in 1991, opened up its economy to foreign investment and trade, creating new opportunities for US businesses. The rise of Islamic extremism, particularly in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks, led to a convergence of security interests between the United States and India. Both countries face threats from terrorist groups operating in South Asia, prompting greater cooperation on counterterrorism. The United States began to see India as a potential partner in promoting stability and security in the wider Asian region. This led to the initiation of a strategic dialogue between the two countries, covering a range of issues from defense cooperation to trade and investment. The Clinton administration took steps to improve relations with India, engaging in a strategic dialogue and lifting some of the sanctions imposed after India's nuclear tests. A major breakthrough in US-India relations came during the George W. Bush administration. Recognizing India's emergence as a major power and its potential role in counterbalancing China, the Bush administration took the historic step of signing a civil nuclear agreement with India in 2005. This agreement, which granted India access to civilian nuclear technology, despite its refusal to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, was a significant departure from previous US policy. The deal was seen as a recognition of India's status as a responsible nuclear power and paved the way for deeper cooperation in other areas. The nuclear deal faced opposition in both countries, but it ultimately survived and became a cornerstone of the growing strategic partnership between the United States and India. The Bush administration's overtures towards India were continued and expanded upon by the Obama administration. The United States formally declared its support for India's bid for a permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council. Recognizing India's growing global stature, the two countries signed a number of agreements on defense cooperation, joint military exercises, and intelligence sharing. Economic ties also flourished, with bilateral trade increasing significantly. The United States became one of India's largest trading partners, and US companies invested heavily in the Indian economy. The term strategic partnership became the defining characteristic of US-India relations during this period. However, despite the growing convergence of interests, certain differences remained, particularly on issues such as Iran and Afghanistan, highlighting the complex nature of the relationship. Understanding the contemporary dynamics between India and China necessitates delving into their long and intricate history. These two Asian giants, each with a rich tapestry of civilization spanning millennia, have engaged in a complex dance of cooperation, competition, and conflict over the centuries. Ancient trade routes, such as the Silk Road, facilitated cultural exchange and economic ties, while Buddhism flowed from India to China, leaving a lasting impact on Chinese philosophy and art. However, the relationship has not been without its share of friction. Border disputes stemming from the vast and challenging terrain of the Himalayas have periodically flared into conflict, most notably in the 1962 Sino-Indian War, which left a scar on bilateral relations. Despite these historical tensions, the latter half of the 20th century witnessed a thaw in relations, with both nations engaging in efforts to normalize ties and establish dialogue mechanisms. The turn of the 21st century marked a period of significant transformation in the global order, characterized by the rise of emerging powers and the decline of Western hegemony. In this evolving geopolitical landscape, India and China found themselves increasingly aligned in their pursuit of a more multipolar world order, one where their voices and interests would carry greater weight. This shared vision led to the formation of BRICS, an acronym for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and later South Africa, a grouping of major emerging economies that sought to challenge the dominance of Western-led institutions like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. BRICS provided a platform for these countries to coordinate their positions on global issues, advocate for reforms in global governance, and foster economic cooperation among themselves. The early 21st century witnessed a remarkable surge in economic ties between India and China. Bilateral trade skyrocketed, with China becoming India's largest trading partner. Chinese investments flowed into various sectors of the Indian economy, from infrastructure to telecommunications, while Indian companies eyed the vast Chinese market. This burgeoning economic interdependence, however, was accompanied by a persistent undercurrent of strategic mistrust. India remained wary of China's growing military might, particularly its naval expansion in the Indian Ocean, which India viewed as its strategic backyard. China's close ties with Pakistan, India's arch-rival, further fueled Indian anxieties. The unresolved border disputes continued to cast a shadow over the relationship, with occasional military standoffs along the Himalayan frontier serving as a stark reminder of the potential for conflict. The year 2020 marked a turning point in India-China relations, as a long-simmering border dispute in the Galwan Valley, a remote region high in the Himalayas, erupted into a deadly clash between Indian and Chinese troops. This violent confrontation, the most serious in decades, resulted in casualties on both sides and sent shockwaves through the region. The Galwan clash shattered the illusion of a stable and manageable border, exposing the fragility of the relationship and raising fears of further escalation. In the aftermath of the clash, both sides engaged in a massive military build-up along the border, deploying troops, artillery and other military hardware. The diplomatic dialogue aimed at disengagement and de-escalation made limited progress, leaving the situation tense and unpredictable. The Galwan clash had profound implications for the future trajectory of India-China relations. It reinforced the deep-seated mistrust between the two countries and highlighted the limits of economic engagement in overcoming strategic rivalry. The US, under Obama, shifted focus to Asia-Pacific, recognizing China's growing power. India, with its strategic location and economy, became key to this strategy. The US deepened defense ties, joint exercises, and technology transfers with India. Landmark agreements enhanced military cooperation and strategic dialogues. The Trump administration strengthened ties with India, viewing the relationship through the lens of great power competition with China. India was designated as a major defense partner, cementing the growing defense relationship. Joint military exercises, including Malabar, involved Japan and Australia, signaling a commitment to Indo-Pacific security. The US agreed to sell India advanced military equipment, including air defense systems and drones. Cooperation extended to space exploration, cybersecurity, and counter-terrorism. The US and India sought to enhance trade and investment flows. They engaged in negotiations to boost bilateral commerce. The Trump administration's protectionist trade policies cast a shadow over the otherwise robust US-India relationship. The US imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum imports from India, citing national security concerns, a move that drew sharp criticism from New Delhi. India retaliated with tariffs on US goods, leading to a tit-for-tat trade war that threatened to undermine the economic dimension of the strategic partnership. The Trump administration also revoked India's preferential trade status under the Generalized System of Preferences program, which allowed certain Indian goods to enter the US market duty-free. This move, intended to pressure India into opening up its markets to US goods and services, further strained trade relations. The Biden administration, upon taking office, sought to reset trade relations with India, engaging in dialogue to resolve outstanding issues and find common ground. The Quad, revived in 2017, unites the US, India, Japan and Australia against China's assertiveness. This informal forum focuses on maritime security, cybersecurity and counter-terrorism. Emphasizing a free and open Indo-Pacific, it upholds international law and sovereignty. China views the Quad with suspicion, seeing it as a containment strategy. The Quad highlights the shifting geopolitical landscape of the Indo-Pacific. Looking ahead, the US-India partnership faces a complex geopolitical landscape. India, pursuing a policy of strategic autonomy, seeks to maintain its freedom of action in international affairs, avoiding entanglement in rigid alliances. This approach allows India to engage with multiple powers, including the US, China, Russia and others, based on its own national interests. While India and the US share common concerns about China's growing assertiveness, their approaches to addressing those concerns may not always align. India's reluctance to become a formal ally of the US, coupled with its continued engagement with China, particularly in economic spheres, presents both challenges and opportunities for the US-India partnership. The US, in navigating this multi-alignment dilemma, will need to demonstrate an understanding of India's strategic imperatives and find ways to align its interests with India's without seeking to contain or constrain India's foreign policy choices. Despite growing strategic rivalry, China remains India's largest trading partner. The sheer size of the Chinese economy and its growing global reach continue to exert a strong pull on India, particularly as India seeks to attract investments and boost economic growth. The US, while seeking to provide alternatives to Chinese investments through initiatives like the Build Back Better World (B3W) partnership, faces an uphill battle in matching the scale and scope of China's economic engagement with developing countries like India. Furthermore, China's Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), despite its controversies, offers tempting opportunities for infrastructure development in India's neighborhood, creating a complex web of economic interdependencies that cannot be easily disentangled. The US, in seeking to counter China's economic influence, will need to offer compelling alternatives that address India's development needs while upholding high standards of transparency, sustainability, and debt sustainability. The US and India, both technological powerhouses, face the challenge of harnessing technological innovation for economic growth while safeguarding national security interests. The rise of China as a technological powerhouse, particularly in areas like artificial intelligence, 5G telecommunications and quantum computing, has added a new layer of complexity to this challenge. The US, seeking to maintain its technological edge, has imposed restrictions on technology transfers to China and has urged its partners, including India, to do the same. India, while sharing some of the US's concerns about China's technological ambitions, is also wary of being shut out of critical supply chains and losing access to cutting-edge technologies. Finding the right balance between fostering innovation and safeguarding security will require close coordination and trust building between the US and India, as well as a nuanced understanding of the technological landscape and its implications for their respective national interests. The Indo-Pacific region, home to some of the world's most dynamic economies and strategically important sea lanes, is poised to remain a focal point of great power competition in the coming decades. The US-India partnership, while facing challenges, holds the potential to shape the regional order in a positive direction. By leveraging their shared values, democratic institutions, and growing economic and military capabilities, the US and India can work together to promote a free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific based on the principles of international law, freedom of navigation, and respect for sovereignty. The future of the Indo-Pacific will likely be characterized by a complex interplay of cooperation and competition as major powers adjust to a multipolar world. The US-India partnership, if nurtured carefully and strategically, can play a pivotal role in shaping this new equilibrium, fostering stability and promoting prosperity in the region and beyond. The evolving dynamics between the United States, India, and China reveal a complex interplay of history, geopolitics, and national interest. India's strategic location and growing military capabilities make it crucial in the Indo-Pacific. The US-India partnership extends beyond counterbalancing China, reflecting shared values and broader cooperation. India's democratic credentials and economic clout make it a natural partner for the US. The US-India partnership, while underpinned by shared concerns about China's growing assertiveness, finds its true potential in the convergence of interests across a wide range of issues. Both countries, as democracies committed to a rules-based international order, recognize the importance of upholding freedom of navigation, ensuring maritime security, and promoting free and fair trade. Collaboration in areas such as counterterrorism, cybersecurity, climate change, and pandemic preparedness further underscores the multifaceted nature of their partnership, extending beyond the traditional realm of security cooperation. However, it is important to acknowledge the limits of shared interests. India's historical ties with Russia, its continued reliance on Russian military hardware, and its reluctance to jeopardize economic ties with China present potential points of friction in the relationship. The US, in navigating these complexities, will need to adopt a nuanced approach, recognizing India's unique constraints and seeking common ground where possible, while respecting India's right to pursue its own foreign policy choices. The Indo-Pacific remains a stage for intense geopolitical competition. The US-India partnership offers hope for a stable and prosperous future. Together they can shape the regional order for the benefit of all. This requires dialogue, compromise, and a shared vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific. The evolving US-India partnership can be transformative for the region and the world. Embracing cooperation and mutual respect, they can build a brighter future,